So good evening again. My name is Kathy Fisher. I'm the Associate Director at the Women's Center, and I'm so excited to see you all here tonight. We would like to begin by first acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the occupied territory of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Posset, and the Nipmuc people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. So tonight's performance is brought to us by an organization called Thinking in Full Color, which is an artistic educational organization focused on sharing the stories of women of color. Through theater and community-driven talkbacks, they empower female-identified creators while educating audiences about the need for diversity in the media, racial issues, and cultural exchange. They often offer women writers a unique platform to tell their stories and give women actors an opportunity to perform work written for them by women like them, an elusive level of authenticity. Their programs to date have featured Black, Hispanic, Latina, Asian, Middle Eastern, Arab, Native American, and multicultural women from 8 different states. They've been honored by the New Jersey State Assembly in 2017, and the Performing Arts received the Performing Arts Award from the New Jersey Arts Council in 2018 in recognition of their contributions to the arts community. Performing tonight is the founder and director, Summer Dawn Hortillosa, along with Samil Ganges and Lillian Wolf. And without further ado, I present to you In Full Color.
Dreamed of having a doll that looks like me. One with my yellowish complexion, one with dark hair and almond eyes and a wide nose. As a little girl, I loved going out to toy stores or the mall. My eyes would immediately skim the room for dolls that I'd run over, hoping, anticipating to find a doll just for me, just like me. I'd see the Polly Pockets of the world, or the Barbies, or the baby born dolls that could really cry or pee. Not once did I find a doll that could be my twin or make-believe child. I'd settle for all the dolls my friends would buy me. But I knew that they weren't the dolls for me. In my head, the world was divided into 2 categories. The majority of people were white, often with light skin and blonde with blue eyes. And the occasional people were black. Dark hair, dark skin, dark eyes. When I was little, my father would recite poetry to me. My favorite poem was one of a father and his black daughter. This girl yearned for a doll that looked like her, pero negra como yo, she begged. Her father spotted a doll in a store window, and since he was poor, he shattered the glass and broke into the shop to steal it, for his little girl was dying. He cried, blood running down his arms as he presented the doll to his dead child. I couldn't understand all the words as a toddler, but the poem would move me to tears as I knew that this doll was important to this child. I knew it was because she never saw herself represented, and I knew that I had to find my special doll as well. I saw myself in this little girl, and I too longed for a doll that looked like me. One that especially had my eyes. I assumed that since my skin is light, I was probably a white girl. I grew up believing this until I went to school. I watched TV a lot growing up, and within all the shows I'd find, even on the Latino 41 and 47, Univision and Telemundo respectively, all the actors were often blondes or brunettes, and all but their language had them looking like white people to me. I couldn't understand because in second grade, the kids would pick on me for looking different. I thought we were all the same, either black or white, until that moment when they pull at the corners of their eyes and tell me I looked Chinese. This rudimentary description came as a surprise, a rude awakening, if you will. Of course, I knew I had some minor differences, but surely I was still a white girl. Everything on TV and Disney princess movies showed it. I just felt like they were being mean, being petty, and choosing to make fun of my eyes. But in second grade, I cried when they finally had a name to go with it. Pocahontas. They made me feel like being compared to this Disney girl was ugly. She was no Sleeping Beauty, Ariel, or Belle. She was weird. She was confusing. She was out of place. She was an Indian. She sat around campfires, talking trees and with animals, starting war chants against the white people. I was on the other side. I was the enemy. I was different, and now I was Pocahontas. And since in the film America was being colonized, I was not American. Originally, I didn't identify as American because I was taught I was Mexican, but now what that really meant was that I was on the outside looking in. I cried and begged my parents not to let me go back to school. I hated knowing that everyone, from my first set of friends to the boy I liked, all gave me that nickname or would laugh about my eyes. And worst of all, I hated myself for having to be born differently, for having to look like this one character, and for knowing that at first, I actually liked her. It's funny. Originally, I didn't identify with her. I didn't see my skin tone in hers. Her eyes didn't remind me of my own at all. I was white. I was here with the John Smiths of the country, not defending my village from invaders. I didn't know then how much I had in common with this princess, but it sure makes me proud now. The Powhatan people, a Native American tribe, is much like my own. The indigenous Zapotec. We are Mesoamerican Indians from back in 300 to 900 AD. And we created beautiful gold jewelry, even for Aztec rulers, including Moctezuma too. And we had ball courts and extravagant tombs. My people made beautiful work and jewelry. They praised crops and seeds for their seasons. My culture's at least 2,500 years old, and yet my parents still speak a Zapotec dialect in our house. I didn't know all this before, but I did know one thing. I wasn't going to let these kids' words have more power than I wanted. That year, I celebrated Dia de Muertos and Halloween by dressing up as Pocahontas and choosing to own that name. It was probably the single most badass thing I did as a 7-year-old. I walked in proudly with my costume, and when the kids would bring up that I looked like her, I thanked them and beamed. For once, I was proud of my skin tone and the shape of my eyes. It finally hit me that it was okay that I wasn't white. My parents could never buy me a Pocahontas doll, and to this day, I hope to have a doll that looks like me. I figure I'll have one made, just so I can say, here I am. I exist. And I can be beautiful, too.
Mom wanted a lumberjack and white picket fences. But instead, she got a man from a culture that turns away women with strawberry hair. She became familiar with foreign words and harsh tones bouncing off the walls of a communal taxi cab custom to the Philippines before she became familiar with love. There are so many walls. My dad left his homeland to fight for another country. But even during his layover in Chicago, stares were directed to the walls as he stood with his lifelong possessions in a briefcase. In that country, he was met by people who squinted in response and asked him if he was going to eat dog for dinner that night. There are so many walls. The habit of raised voices is familiar to my father, but not so much to my mother. So when he's explaining about how good a piece of toast is, or how righteous the Sunday post is, or how beautiful a sunset looks in a confining car, it sounds as if he's angry. There are so many walls. I'm only like my parents when my parents are next to me. Because alone, my dad is too Asian for my pale skin, and my mom is too white for these eyes. I go out with my childhood friends, and it almost seems as if my childhood buddy is more like my mom's kid. Their skin tones matching, and their freckle count closer. There are so many walls. Before my mom met my dad, her extent of experience with Asia was contained within the walls of the town's only buffet. General Fo's chicken, hot from just being microwaved. There are so many walls. Within the walls of my own home, I find myself stopping in front of mirrors and windows and picking at my eyes. Outside, I sit in the sun and hope and pray and beg for freckles, only to be met with a darker tan and the words, "It's a miracle you Asians don't sunburn." There are so many walls. In the supermarket, the walls are covered with items littered with stickers hidden at the bottom with words, "Made in China," "Made in Vietnam," "Made in Asia," which people take as a sign that the item is no longer quality. There are so many walls. I've never been beaten up before. But when voices mock me for being the only Asian girl at the table, or the only student able to stomach raw fish without gagging, it feels the same as being pushed against a wall. China girl feels like getting slammed. Kawaii feels like a punch. Chink is the sound I make when I fall. There are so many walls. During the 7+ years I've been in school, I've learned not to raise my hand too fast or too often, as it might elicit an eye roll or an, "Of course she knows the answer." When I get less than 92% on my test, the person to my right asks me how many times my father is going to beat me with a flip-flop. There are so many walls. Mulan plays within the walls of my parents' bedroom TV, and I am lapping up Disney's only attempt at including kids that look remotely like me. Harry Potter sits within the walls of my childhood bookcase. The character Cho Chang appropriately sorted into the smart house, appropriately a damsel in distress, appropriately my go-to Halloween costume for the next 4 years. There are so many walls. My blanket suddenly feels tight against my body as my best friend whispers about how she wishes she wasn't white, how she wishes she was more unique. My mind wishes to be less different, less vulnerable. There are so many walls. People laugh when I fit chopsticks between my fingers, yet have no response when I use a fork. Walls. People ask me what kind of knees I am. I stand stricken, confused. Walls. Follow the yellow brick road. Walls. I know you're not like Asian, but I'm still going to use it as an insult. Walls. There are so many walls that I have yet to break through. There are walls within my own veins, splitting them down the middle, half and half. My home is one great big wall, and there are not enough peepholes and not enough loose bricks. There are walls that breach my connection to my own family. There are walls filled with unmistakable, unbreakable, blatant hate. So, Mr. Trump, do you really think we need more walls?
Last weekend, I went to a party that my best friend's boyfriend threw. All of his buddies from his hometown were there. One particular guy was drunk. Like he's been drinking since 10 a.m. and we actually had to wake him up for the party drunk. I knew he was going to be trouble from the moment we locked eyes. After being formally introduced, he gave me a very animated, "Hey, girlfriend!" And I put a mental mark on my, "Wow, I wonder how many misogynistic and racist things this jerk will say to me" list. And he didn't disappoint. As the night continued, he shot random questions my way, like, "Where'd you get that hipster shirt?" It's the Gap." "You're tall. You must love tall men." "Yeah, I do." "So where's your basketball player boyfriend, huh?" "I don't have one. He's not here." "Oh, so you work in the city? Must be some kind of fancy girl. Is that where you got the hipster shirt?" As you can see, he was charming the fuck out of me. Finally, he got quiet for about 5 minutes. Took a long drag off of his cigarette. "You know, you remind me of my ex. She's Cuban." "I seriously doubt I do." No. You two are very similar. Feisty. I mean, no offense to you or any of the other ladies at this party, but that's the reason why I don't date Black, Latino, or Italian women. Too loose with your lips. As these words flowed out of his mouth, I was magically transported to a world, and I named this world Dickhead World. In this world, I imagined that this man was a godlike creature, and that the Black, Latino, Italian female population fought Hunger Games style for a chance to carry his drunk baby. In this world, the Black, Latino, Italian female population used their mouths to laugh at his awful jokes. And suck on his whiskey-soaked penis. Instead of telling him the truth. The real reason for his friendly hostility. He was intimidated by me. He was intimidated by us. And by us, I mean smart, funny, sexy, self-assured women, and we don't want you. Dickhead World got boring, so I came back to the real world where my friend was holding my hand and all the rest of them were looking at me. And she whispered, "Please, don't murder him. He's not worth it." And I thought, she's right. So I looked at him straight in his eyes and I said, "You know, that really sucks for all the Black, Latino, Italian female population, but I think we're going to be okay." And I like to say, from this moment forward, we still are.
I forgive you. Yes, you. I forgive you for all the times you looked at me like I'm a foreigner, to the point where I couldn't tell if you were checking me out or hoping I leave the country. I forgive all the times you spoke broken Spanish at me because you couldn't tell. I know the English language better than you. I forgive your inability to pronounce my name. I forgive each of the lewd thoughts you had or spewed when you looked me up and down and saw exotic written on my breasts. I forgive the sombreros and the Cinco de Mayo parties you threw to be Mexican for a day. I forgive you for not deporting yourself in that 24-hour span. I forgive all the times you thought or said wetback and illegal. No, really, I do. Because SPIC is the new ICUP. I forgive that your automatic response to my almond-shaped eyes and high grades is Asian and not indigenous native. And all the times you were shocked that I don't have dark brown skin, 7 siblings, or an accent. I forgive your amazement that I don't want to have more kids after having my only child. Or that I didn't get married for papers. Or live with all my aunts, uncles, and cousins in a 2-bedroom apartment off of government handouts. I forgive your compliments on my eloquence and all the racist remarks you made when you thought that either I couldn't understand you or that I wasn't from south of the border. I forgive your jungle fever and your confusion when I explained that the Spanish are from Spain, but that, according to Zapotec mythology, I descended from jaguars. I forgive you for leaving this building tonight, thinking you were open-minded, for hearing out voices that you systemically silenced, but feeling like you aren't one of the people I'm addressing in this passage. I forgive you when you told me I'm a minority, despite that we outnumber you. And all the times you tell me to go back to a country that I've only known as a baby, even though this one has stolen land from my people. I forgive that you took my father and destroyed our family, but you patiently explained it away as the law. As if this country was founded on a perfect system. But let's not forget where our legislation has previously failed its people. After all, women's suffrage came about in 1920. Only 4 years later were Native Americans granted citizenship. No, not their civil rights. That wasn't until 1968. 4 years after the Jim Crow laws were finally terminated, Latino citizens couldn't even vote until a decade after the law said so. And Asian Americans, and Alaskans, and Native Americans, and Hawaiians. Because what good is a law if the materials aren't printed in your language, deliberately discriminating so you can't even register in the first place? So even if you want to leave it in the past like it never happened, the reality is that there are people alive today that are older than some of these laws. Progress takes time. After all, same-sex marriage was only legalized in 2015, so I forgive you if you can't see past the present day into a future where no human being is illegal. I forgive that you may think forgiveness means all is well and done and won't warrant more action on your behalf because you don't hold yourself personally responsible. I forgive it all. But forgiveness is not a feeling. It's a decision. And I may forgive you, but I do not pardon you. And there is a difference.
I'm getting married today to a beautiful 6'3" Dominican man. He is funny and smart and kind and he plays guitar. He is everything that I could ask for. Yet for some reason, all I can think about is Rachel Elizabeth Miller. 1997. I was in love. Pure, innocent, Kinderdijk love. Rachel had long, dark hair that she tied back with a ribbon, and the most precious face I had ever seen. I tried talking to her at lunch, sitting next to her on the swings. I gave her my Lunchables. But no matter what I did, she didn't want anything to do with me. And it hurt me in a way that I didn't understand. She wasn't my only crush. You know, there was Jeffrey, Mark, Francisco, and I spent my days dreaming about Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Peter Parker, who turned out to not be real. It wasn't until I was older that I realized the way these boys made me feel was the way Rachel made me feel too. Today, I still daydream about Spider-Man, but I daydream about Wonder Woman too. This is not my, aha, I'm gay moment. No one really has those. When I think back to the first time I found someone pretty or magnetic, I just kind of always felt the same. You know, I was never in denial or ashamed, but as a kid I wasn't out. You know, my mother, oh my God, my Asianly conservative and Spanishly religious mother hated gays. She mourned every time a celebrity came out of the closet, like Ricky Martin or Lance Bass or Barry Manilow. I think it's going to be a little slow on the uptake. So I said nothing and did nothing. And that was okay. As I began to bleed and bud and become a woman, I found myself continuing to chase Jonathans and Peters, Latin lovers, Italian stallions. I wanted a child. I wanted marriage. And even though I knew that a future was coming where I could have these things with a beautiful, shapely siren, I also knew that I wanted a man. So I dated them, tangled bodies with them. I loved them. I love my fiance, yet today I am so freaking nervous. When I saw myself in the mirror today, with my dark hair tied back, I saw shadows of all the women I've ever wanted. Now I am going to have to kiss them goodbye. No, not even. I am never going to get to kiss them. Oh, I'm sorry, Father. Yo, Summer, te tomo a ti, Dre, como mi esposo. Prometo serte fiel en lo próspero y en lo adverso, en la salud y la enfermedad. Can I check my phone really quick? Sorry. Siri, look up hot women. Cool. Damn. Jesus Christ, those are nice boots. I can't do this. I can't marry a man. What if I just never found the right girl? Or do I really want this, or is society just selling it on me? Is it just easier? Oh my God, I'm gonna have to unfollow Shakira on Instagram because I cannot take this kind of torture. I may be getting married, but I'm still bi. I'm still bi. I did love a girl once. Not like Rachel, like for real. Her name was Karen. She had long, dark hair. I have a type. And the most precious face I had ever seen. She was an artist that she could never catch a break. Her college boyfriend tore through her innocence like wrapping paper, taking her presence for himself. She lost loved ones. She lost touch with reality. And I was there for her through it all. We loved laying out in the grass and giggling like schoolgirls, swapping clothes and swapping spit. We saw each other every day. And yet we never stopped teasing each other over Jonathan's or spooning over Peter's. We actually lost each other to men and never saw each other again. I remember when she was driving to Virginia, I was crying. She was stroking my hair and she said, I'm gonna miss you. And I said, I'm gonna miss you too. Just, no matter what you do, just focus on yourself. And she laughed and she said, sure, it's not like I have a choice. I don't know, something about that was funny to me. And I guess I don't have a choice either. I'm sorry. I'm nervous. But I'm ready now. Andres, mi corazón, mi vida, you pretty, magnetic, wonderful man. Yo prometo amarte y respetarte por todos los días de mi vida. I love you. I do.
A gunman walks into a church doing Bible study. Let me say that again. A white gunman walks into a black church in Charleston, South Carolina during Bible study. Walks in, rests his hind parts in a sacred chair, absorbs biblical principles, steeps in the love and care of his fellow men and women, all the while contemplating this evil demon. Gentle hearts, ambushed predator. Gun goes off. Something wrong, something just wrong is spoken, and gun goes off. Black bodies are down, bodies are saturated. The horror, the walls cry out, the floorboards cry out as each body drops to the ground. A mother shields her child. Right there on the floor, her protective instinct wired into her brain like a trim of a wedding veil. Mother covers the little girl and whispers critically, "Play dead. Play dead." The gunman nears, and she presses again. The lioness survives. So does the cub. This is my daughter. She's 3 years old. She doesn't understand death. She doesn't know where it comes from or how we get there. All she knows is if she sees a roach turned over on the ground, she has nothing to fear because it's dead. She doesn't comprehend the concept of death. What would she do if I asked her to play dead? Could she do it? Would she do it? I remember playing dead. I was among intellectuals. I was among white intellectuals, and I refused to give my opinion because I didn't think they would get me. My existence was opinion enough. I didn't want to waste energy. I didn't want to waste time, so I played dead. I played dead in my memory when asked about growing up in a small Mississippi town with few opportunities and fewer resources. I play dead when I don't pray before I eat my meal in public, when I don't pray at all. When our body and our blood is flowing, and the circuitry surging is powerful, I am literally an overflowing river. I am both a fountain and a stream, full, wet, young with wisdom, yet I play dead, repressing everything that makes me feel too insignificant and too small. Therefore, I never become a giant. Passing on endearment and settling for exhaustion, we play dead in our lovemaking. When we're tired of renewing ourselves and seeking newness in repeated gestures, we resent love's echo. And we're afraid to move on, so we stay dormant. And yet, a gunman walks into a church and kills 9 people. To survive, a mother and a child play dead. And they live to tell the tale. We live with a mouth full of perspective and a point of view, and we say nothing. We do nothing. We are machines with silent settings. I urge you, gentle hearts, don't play dead unless you know you're going to die. Don't play dead when you have your whole life stretched out in front of you like empty space, for empty space has more energy than everything in this known universe. So no more playing dead. From now on, I live, you live, we live. Thank you.
We're going to
I feel like we're like far. Hi guys. Hi, so I'm Summer. I'm the founder of Thinking in Full Color. This is Samil Ganges. This is Lillian Wolf. 2 of my very good friends and just amazingly talented actresses. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we're just going to tell you a little bit about ourselves and this program, and then hear from you guys, your thoughts and feelings, answer some of your questions. So I'll just go first. I'll introduce myself. So my name is Summer Dawn Reyes. I was performing a weird mix of stuff today, but I would consider myself Asian and white Hispanic, and I'm from New Jersey and Colorado. And I started this organization because I felt that women weren't being represented, women of color weren't being represented in the media in, first of all, in an abundant way, but also in an authentic way. I felt that a lot of the roles that were available to me as an Asian presenting actress were very stereotypical and just all about, I mean, even the Latina roles are also very stereotypical. And so I created this, but quickly, realized that we had a more important social mission and that we were talking about things that people need to talk about, big social, racial, and feminist issues, and that we could give a voice to a lot of people who need it. Today I performed Walls, was the first piece. It's a spoken word piece by my 14-year-old sister, Alina Hortillosa, and she is actually biracial. So we share the same father, who is Chinese and Basque, and then her mother is, I think, Swedish.
I'm Samil Ganges. I'm an artist, actor, singer, musician, I guess.
You're a musician.
A teacher, I guess. I'm a teacher too. I live in New Jersey, so I'm based in that New Jersey, New York area. My degree is in musical theater. I teach regularly in North New Jersey. I work at NJPAC. I do stuff with Summer. I do have a little girl. She is 3 years old. And I'm happy to be here. I don't know. I'm a Cancer.
What were your pieces?
My piece, the first one I did was He Didn't
Want
He
Me.
Didn't Want Me. I always want to say He Didn't Get Me. He Didn't Want Me, which is by Courtney Wheeler, another friend of In Full Color. And my last piece is called Play Dead by Chinzia.
Clinisha D. Sibley. She's actually from South Carolina.
Yeah. So that was like a piece that was close to her heart, but I think it's a piece that should be close to all of our hearts, and it has so many different facets in there, besides the obvious of what we know historically of what happened, and how we can learn from that ourselves about how we do play dead in everyday life. So I think it's metaphorical and also like quite literal too.
I'm Julianne Wolf. I am the co-founder to our sister company, 68 Productions, and I perform theater and musical theater. I did my off-Broadway debut back when I was 17, and I've been doing theater ever since. The pieces I performed today were Pocahontas and I Forgive You by Yadinet Peña Vargas. And they're pieces that speak a lot about my culture, the Zapotec culture, which I feel is very underrepresented when people even discuss Mexican or Latino characters out there.
Yeah, this girl's like, we've known each other since like high school. We like have been doing theater together for a long time. She's like my sister, and we have the same birthday. We always talk about that.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's us. I don't know what else we should talk about. We should talk about the pieces in more detail. Do you guys want us to do that a little bit? So Walls was written by my sister. Oh wait, no. You know what? Let's just go in order. Let's go in like the running order. So yours is Pocahontas. Sorry. There's three of all.
Pocahontas is like a personal journey about trying to find myself in a world where I felt like Latinos don't really fit in. I felt like it was really, you see so much in the media with black voices and white voices, white being the majority, and you barely ever see anything with Latinos even among the Latino community. You'll see like the Latinos trying to portray themselves as white. And you'll see that over there the colorism is a very serious issue where people shoo black or even just slightly darker people than being as light as you can be. So that's something that I felt very hurt by growing up, and the poem my father would read was a very special poem to me because I understood. I personally agreed with that little girl myself, and I mean, it was something that was painful, but was also a reality that I accepted. So I wanted to write about that.
I think that's so interesting, and I saw like a bunch of people being like, yeah, I totally agree with how Latinos represent themselves and how they're represented. Walls was written by my little sister, and I was just like blown away because I was like, oh my god, you're so talented. And it's interesting because we kind of grew up very far apart because we didn't grow up in the same place, and we didn't grow up, she's 13 years younger. So it was crazy when I first read it. I was just really hurt and sad that people were making my sister feel this way. And I've experienced discrimination for being Asian as well, but it was so interesting to see her point of view, especially because she comes from two different cultures, and she has that dichotomy and that sense that I know a lot of multiracial and biracial people have, where they feel like they don't quite belong anywhere. And it's just such a remarkable piece. And then when I got to the end where she showed this to me like around like 2016 when Donald Trump was actually running for office, and I'm reading there are so many walls like over and over again, and then when she gets, but like for some reason I just wasn't thinking of it, and when she gets to the end and she loops it back in and says, so Mr. Trump, do you really think we need more walls? Something about that just punched me in the gut, because I realized that this metaphorical wall that we use to, that is a result of our xenophobia can be a physical wall that causes so much pain and suffering for so many people. And I don't know, it just punched me right in the feels.
So Courtney's piece, he didn't get me. I mean, she's not here to talk about it, but I think she's coming from a perspective of men being attracted to women, that they also have some type of racial bias or judgmental connotation going into it. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but I think especially minority women, and I have honestly been trying not to use that word as often, but people of different ethnic backgrounds that aren't white, I guess I would have to say it like that. I think those women go through these situations where men are attracted to them, and maybe they fetish it in a way, like it's fetishized, or they really do think this chick is really cool, but maybe they don't think they can like bring her home or like have her under their arm or whatever. And I mean, I'm a big girl, so I mean that goes for like fat chicks, but it could go for like a white guy, like in like a black girl, or like in a Muslim chick, or just like in a real successful fucking badass fucking woman that they feel like they don't own up to that shit, And in this piece, she talks about that. He's like, oh, so you work in the city, you must be some type of fancy girl. Well, she works at fucking HBO. She is a fucking fancy girl. So, like, I can get that. But she's also, like, a real cool, like, beer in hand type of fucking chick that's, like, at a party. So it's like, I could see where guys would be like, yo, I can hang out with this chick in a plaid shirt, but, like, this black girl is, like, totally not fucking into me. What is she into? I don't get her. Why is she here? She's out of place. You know what I mean? And I feel like also like being a black girl sometimes is just like we're supposed to be like these ghetto-fied creatures, very stereotypical, like tight skirts, wearing all these fucking labels and shit. But some of us are just like we're fucking nerds and dorks too, and that's pretty much what fucking Courtney is. And I think that she wrote it from that perspective, and he kind of looped her into this big web of all types of women. I mean, he spit out nationalities, but he was spitting out a feisty type of woman. He was stereotypically talking about Latino women, Italian women, and black women having too much mouth, having too much attitude, that they talk back, they don't they're not resigned, they're not quiet, they're not meek. And he was saying these are the reasons why I can't date you. But it's like, why you keep fucking talking to me then? Like, alright. So I think it's like it just comes from that place, and she took the high road in it. Was Michelle Obama say, "Well, they go low, we go high," and that's what she did basically. You know.
My other piece that I did was I Forgive You, and that is a reflective piece that covers more the stereotypes that people can be fed about a certain group of people, and that could be about anybody. In this case, it's about being Mexican, and all the negative and even some of the positive qualities that people attribute to us, and saying that it's all really on the surface when you have a stereotype like that. These are all surface things that you can technically forgive, look past, but it's about not being able to let it go. You have to still hold that person responsible for what they're saying, for what they're doing, for what they're thinking against you or whoever else that you may know of. So I think it's very important to be able to acknowledge that somebody can break all of these stereotypes or they can be all of these stereotypes. But either way, it's not appropriate to put them in those categories as though they're not a human being.
I was like, what's my second piece? So the second, my second piece was called Bye Bye Bye, but like bye bye bisexuality. And it was written by me because I don't know, I've just been thinking a lot about being bisexual. So I really did marry Dre in real life. But his name is Greg. Well, his middle name is Andres. But anyway. And I've been thinking a lot about just, you know, like, wow, like I really can't be with a girl anymore, you know, and it's just like, because I can't also be with other guys. So it's like this whole monogamy thing. It's a weird concept. But I was like, you know, people always try to say that bisexual people are whatever matches whatever partner they're with at that moment. And I just always thought that was so stupid because you're still bisexual. And there's so many like stupid stereotypes about bisexual people, that they're sluts, that they're not monogamous, that, you know, that they're attracted to everyone. And it's like, you know, people, you know, I'm still discerning. I still, you know, I'm attracted to certain people, not attracted to certain people. And it just happens to be that they can be, you know, women or men. So I wrote this piece. I mean, I didn't really have this. My husband hates this piece. He's like trying to be supportive, but he like clearly hates it. And he's like, I can't. He's like, I don't really like it that like, you know, you're like thinking about this, or you're like going to marry me. I was like, I was not thinking that. It's called creative liberty. I just needed a frame for the concept. I was not thinking. I was thinking more like, hey, I'm gonna marry Greg. He's so cute. Our vows really were in Spanish though, which was like kind of a weird accent because we live in a very Hispanic town. And they're like, do you want your vows in English or Spanish? And I don't know why, but we thought it would be a valid response to be like, nah. And then they started doing it in Spanish, and we were like, oh, I guess we're doing this in Spanish. Sí. I don't even know what you say when you get married in Spanish, if it's like, sí.
The equivalent of I do.
Yeah, what's the equivalent of I do? Does anyone know? No, none of us have gotten married in Spanish. I guess I'm the only one. But anyway, that's my story. And the stories about the little girl and the woman, those are more true. And I think that, I don't know, is anyone bisexual here? Yeah, my people. Like you just, you know, you experience different levels of attraction to different people, and there's a different percentage or there's a different flow for everybody. And I just wanted to like kind of do a piece that kind of let people know that, like, you know, bisexual people are just people.
Well, the Play Dead piece I kind of talked about a little bit earlier. Like, the basis of it is about a real historical event that happened that, of course, is sad and shocking. And I thinking about how what would we do in that type of circumstance? Like, if a gunman came into our church or whatever our holy place is, and how we would respond to that. I mean, he did come in and he did pray with these people, and they treated him like a child of God, you know, and he still had this other ticking time bomb in him. And how this one mother and her child lived to tell the tale, and of course they're like, you know, eyewitnesses to this crime, and that's why he's getting the maximum penalty. But, you know, just metaphorically, so many things that we don't talk about or don't stick up for, you know, and you should stick up for the person next to you, and you should stick up for what's right. You should stick up for yourself. So that big part in the middle, that big chunk in the middle of that monologue is all about this character playing dead in her own life. I definitely relate to that line where she says she was among intellectuals. She was among white intellectuals, and she didn't give her opinion because she didn't think they would get me. I've definitely been there. I've definitely been in those situations where I'm just like, it's me and all these white guys, and I don't know if they want to hear what I gotta say. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they do. Maybe they do want to hear what I have to say. But we're just so embedded in our minds to thinking that, like, I'm a woman, I'm a black woman, they don't want to hear my full gusto fucking opinion right now. You know? And I think that's something really valid. And I mean, young people, you know, you guys are young, you're still like coming into your own, you're about to graduate and go into the world. You know, I'm sure being in college, you had to like stick up for yourself and like speak up for yourself the first time. You're like, oh my God, my mom's not gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. Like, you're mistreating me. You're like, oh my God, I said it. Like, it's just all types of things that you think for your first time. But there's all this other time that you've been playing dead in a way. You don't even think about it like that. And you shouldn't allow yourself that type of reality. You should definitely allow yourself to be in the moment. And I think that's what also that monologue is about being in the moment. And that mother was in the moment. Like, for her to act swiftly with her protective instincts, as it is said in the monologue, to play dead with her child, and maybe not trying to discourage the spirits that have passed. Maybe they were too caught up in whatever they were caught up in that moment in that church, and they weren't paying attention to the moment that happened. You know? And I don't mean that in any type of way. I mean, tragedy happens. But I think the more that you live presently and in the moment, and you pay attention to all your senses, and definitely pay attention to how people are treating you or mistreating you in every day, and how you allow yourself to be in certain situations where you don't speak up for yourself, whether it's lovemaking or relationships, friendships, job, work situations, even maybe a professor that is walking all over you. Drop that fucking class and go take somebody else next semester. Okay? I mean, if you're paying $20,000 fucking dollars, I wouldn't. Just saying.
So those are do you guys have questions or comments? I know you all do. Don't play dead. Don't play dead. Don't play dead. There you go.
Would you mind just repeating the author of the play
Sure. You have to repeat because I don't know.
Her name is Quenisha D. Sibley. She's really talented. She lives in South Carolina. And I guess this is a good time to mention, like, so we have some merch and stuff, so after the show, you can come up to the stage and see it. And we actually have an anthology with, like, a couple seasons of monologues, and so you could actually get, that monologue is in there, Pocahontas is in there, Courtney's piece is in there. Huh? No, I forgive you. Yeah, so like a lot of these pieces are so good, and I'll just like sit and like read them, like, and it's so powerful, and they're such a diverse like.
And it makes an awesome gift to give people.
Yeah.
Especially if you have like actor friends or like.
Or anybody who's a racist.
That's my new marketing campaign. I'll be like, buy this for a racist. We will sell out. We won't have any books anymore. They're like, where do all our books go? Yeah, it's sad, but it's true.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I saw someone's hand in the bag. Yeah, there we go.
When you referred to your little sister, you mentioned that she is biracial because she's half Chinese and half Swedish. And you also said yourself that you're white, Latina, and Chinese. But do you also consider yourself biracial? Because I didn't really sense that in your talk about your sister.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I guess I thought of it. I think she has a different experience because her mom is clearly white and her dad is clearly Asian. My mom and my dad are both mixed but Asian presenting. And I also never lived with both of them really. They were divorced, and so I was mostly with my mother. And I look enough like her that I never experienced this thing where people have the "that's your mom" kind of thing. I think she just has a different experience. She also, I grew up mostly in Jersey City, New Jersey, which is super diverse. And she's in Minneapolis, which is fairly diverse, but it's definitely a lot rarer to see Asian people. And so I think I described her more as biracial because I feel like she really feels that tension, whereas I feel like I've never really felt that. I have my own personal dichotomy and stuff. Now I'm married to a Latino man, and I have a Latino stepson and a Latino family, and I'm speaking Spanish all the time, and I live in a Spanish-speaking city. So and people are starting to just see me more as an Asian-looking Hispanic person, and that's interesting, and I feel like I identify with that more than I do. But people are what kind of Spanish are you? Because you're the thing, Spanish. And I'm oh, I'm the evil colonialist kind. Just Spanish. And they're oh, they're sorry, they think I'm gonna say, Guatemalan, Mexican, or whatever it is. So I think we just have different experiences, but that is interesting. Yeah, I feel I don't know if I would be I'm biracial, but I feel she would definitely be I'm biracial. That's my impression of us. Does anyone have other questions?
How do you all collect the pieces that you perform? How do you find them?
That's a really good question. So every year we have this big theatrical production, and a couple months before we'll do an open submission, and we've gotten submissions from all around the world. So far we've accepted things from 6 or 7 different states. Well, actually no, maybe 8 states now. And they're women of all backgrounds, so there's no strict requirement except that it be under 5 minutes. It can be about literally anything as long as it reflects your experience as a woman of color. And so obviously you see a lot of diversity in the subject matter here. That diversity is consistent throughout the whole show. We have people talking about cooking, talking about, you can talk about fashion, you can talk about religion, you can talk about a whole bunch of things. So we source it through open submissions. We select about a dozen a year, and that's where we got these pieces. But we also are starting to do some other stuff too. So we tour colleges and community centers. We're doing more things. We're doing a coloring book, which is my big project right now. It's going to feature women of color because I want to inspire little girls of color to be yo, that's a hero. It looks like me. I could be a hero. And we talk about that in our pieces a little bit about if you had a doll or if you had a coloring book where you're that's a person who looks like me, you would feel a lot more empowered. And we're actually getting all artists of color to illustrate it, and they all picked people that personally inspired them, which is really cool. And there's more information about that. We do comedy show. We're gonna do our first concert, and we're just looking to work with women of color and give them artistic opportunities. So if you guys know writers or actresses or even people who are musicians or even dancers or something, we would love to see your stuff and work with you guys. I'll just talk a little bit about the stuff that's over there. so you guys can interact. There's a mailing list, so you can get updates about our projects. There's merch. We got little pins. We got stickers. My favorite pin right now says "Believe Women," because we need to believe women. There's books. There's fun books. Like, you can get all these monologues. There's a little book I wrote about. It's called "Boys I Haven't Loved Yet," and it's about scrubs, basically. And there's a couple other. There's "How to Destroy the Patriarchy in 7 Days," an instructional guide, very useful for when there's patriarchy. And then something that's definitely something with a trigger warning. It's called "A History of Sexual Trauma Abridged," and it kind of addresses the universality of sexual trauma for women and women-identified people. Yeah, about us.
Is that all cash only?
No, we have Venmo, we have Square, we have, you can give us your firstborn child. Well, actually, we're still registering with our bank account, like trying to figure that out, you know. I'm like, Chase, how do we accept firstborn children? Yeah, we accept pretty much everything. We got PayPal, all of it. Yay. Does anyone else have any more questions or comments? You can just share your feelings. No one has any feelings? Okay.
I really enjoyed this place. Thank you very much.
Yay! It's our second time here. I love it. Well, it's our second time here.
time here.
First time.
What about the dude right in the middle right here?
I thought it was great. I'm sad that there aren't more cis white men here, but I thought it was.
I like it.
Yay!
So big the whole time. Like, I was just, I couldn't stop looking at him. Thank you.
That's wonderful. All the women are going to fight the Hunger Games stuff. Oh, there's another dude.
See?
I love it. Thank you. Yes. Yay. I love that. And you know, that's the thing though, all these things, these are all for all people. Like, you know, people, obviously women of color come to our shows, but it's like, it's entertainment. Like, you know,
You get to learn something.
Yeah,
Like,
you get
know
to
what I'm
learn
saying?
something.
Like, these are stories that you, like, I mean, I've known Yerda for a few years, but when she said those pieces out there, I didn't know what the Socratic dialect was. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you can learn something too, and you can, like, take those gems, and now you can just, like, Google it and, like, explore more. Like, we're in this new age now where you could just, like, meet up with people anywhere of any nationality, or just, like, find them online, and you could just learn, and keep shedding all those walls.
Yeah, like, why did anime get so big? Because American cartoons got boring. They were all doing the same thing. No, but it's true. People were like, what is this? It's new ideas? Oh my god. Exactly. Like, I was saying, to someone, I was like, yeah, people are always entertained by our stuff because it's new. Like, it's stuff that you don't see in the movies already, new stories that you haven't heard. And I was like, you know, how many times are they going to reboot Spider-Man? I was like, it's the most interesting thing to happen to a white man, being bitten by a radioactive spider. And I was like, I guess it is, you know? They're just going to keep doing it. Keep doing it for every generation. I mean, I'll still go watch it because I love Peter Parker, obviously. But
Who doesn't?
who doesn't? I know. I wish he was real.
Right.
I'm sorry, what was your name again? Me? No. Her? Lily. Lilian. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know. It's okay. Lily, like flower.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated your monologue because I feel like the amount of representation that just I feel like the U.S. in general lacks for indigenous people is ridiculous because at one point y'all were 100% of the population.
Right.
So I really appreciated that because I feel like we need that. Like even at UConn we have like a kind of cultural center, but not really for Native American students, and it's the tiniest thing ever. So it like pisses me off all the time. But thank you for like being doing that.
I actually say 3 words in the Zapotec dialect. My parents actually speak it fluently, and everybody in my family, everybody except me, except obviously like my cousins, new generation people. But like my parents and older, that's basically all they spoke, because you'd have to be of the fancier communities who spoke Spanish, like you were more elevated, you know? So my mom had to learn to speak Spanish. and then coming here having to try to learn to speak English. My father managed it, my mother has still yet to do it. It's been like as long as I've been here pretty much.
What can you say in Zapotec?
I can say yes, no, and yesterday.
How do you say it?
Yes is uh-huh. No is go. And yesterday is easy.
I thought no was gonna be nuh-uh after you. I was like, I feel like you've been caught. I feel like that's not Zapotec.
But I can also say, actually, I can say Holy Bible, because we have a Holy Bible in Zapoteco. So it's Si Pendi Biblia.
Whoa, I like that. That sounded Italian.
Right.
It's actually
Depends,
Latin.
I love it.
Are there any Native Americans here today, or?
it's a oh
Okay.
okay.
Yay!
That's
Because there was one last time. There was a girl last time that talked a lot. And I just, you know, well, maybe she graduated. I don't know.
I love seeing all of you guys here, and I love the diversity in the crowd, and I love that there's a large crowd. That's also nice.
Really sweet.
Yeah, you guys are fantastic. Do you have a thing?
I wanted to comment. I really appreciated Lily's monologue because what you said, people with teeth are supposed to be Chinese. I got that when I was younger, but I'm also Mexican. And
They don't think
like-
that people
Yeah.
they have this stereotype of you must have a thick mustache and brown skin and wear a sombrero all the time. I can identify as that. No, I can't.
so I also identified with some of the walls because I'm also half Puerto Rican.
Oh.
I identify against Hispanic or Latina, but then not looking it, it's been really hard to
It's one of the
Yeah.
toughest things to not know where you fit in, where you feel like why don't people know me as what I am, you know? You don't want to be a stereotype, but you also feel like, why are you mislabeling me? And it's not like it's the most offensive thing to be labeled Asian, you know, there's definitely offensive things to be labeled, and that's not it. Being mistaken for another culture is very common for a lot of people. But there's something about feeling like you don't exist.
Yeah.
When you talk about the colors and Latino communities, I don't fit in because I'm always Latinita, you know?
Yeah.
So, now I'm in an Asian store experience, but I found solace somewhere else. Really.
Right.
Yes. Aw.
That is so sweet.
And we always pretend we're sisters because I look Asian.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
People confuse us for each other.
Since high school, they would
Yeah.
call me her name, and
Yeah.
It
They're
was
there's someone who
so
looks like you.
strange.
And I was like, who? And yeah.
and then we have the same birthday. So then it was like,
Yeah.
it's really weird.
We always dress in opposite colors. It'll happen a lot, weird colors too. I'll be wearing a red top and black pants, and she'll have red pants, which is not that common, and a black shirt. And we look at each other and we're like, how do we show up to the
We
same
have
place
done that
this
so many
times? Yeah.
To the point that sometimes I actually think she's calling to ask what I'm wearing in case I don't wear, so she doesn't have to wear it.
We somewhat coordinated, and I realized we're wearing African pride
really good
colors.
African flag.
I was like, cool, that scene in Black Panther. Semiotic. Let's see, do we have? I guess let's close it up. If you guys could share just a wish you have for the future America, these young people, this generation, as they go out and become our future leaders.
Well, I wish for everybody to have a little more patience with each other. Because sometimes we get frustrated, and honestly, all we need to do is take a minute to reflect, understand somebody else's perspective may not always be the same one that we share. And sometimes that's a good thing. So, peace and patience.
I feel like I do a lot of work to encourage philosophical success for the generation. So I'm gonna throw my wish the other way. I wish you guys a lot of economic prosperity, and I hope that you guys also have the wisdom to share your wealth with those who need it, and to invest in your happiness and in your family, and to use the power that comes along with that wealth to help others who are like you and who are not like you.
I just wish that you keep searching and digging and don't take everything for face value, you know? Really listen to your gut, your intuition, if you're prayerful to your Lord, and to just know that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out here in the world, and the older you get, they reveal themselves to you. And I think that's when a lot of young people get discouraged in life. I do think that there's something that happens when a lot of people graduate college and they kind of get stuck because they're hit with a lot of reality. And just know that doesn't mean that there's not a place for you and that you can't move on, but you definitely need to be aware of that and travel, you know, make friends with someone that doesn't look like you, learn from that, you know, love people for who they are, and just don't listen to what everybody tells you. Find it out for yourself. For yourself. I love y'all.
Yeah!
That shit is so dope. And then our lady cat.
Yeah, no, so you're going to be here for a little bit. We're going to give another round of applause. So thank you all for coming. You'll be here for a little bit. So
Come and
if
chat
you want
with
to
us.
continue having conversation.
Check out this spot.